In our last video, we added buttons to open up a help panel that showed the player how to play the game. In this video, we're going to look at how to create a very simple start scene that will make use of the UGUI buttons as well. So right now I'm in this scene here, and we're going to want to create a brand new scene that's just a start scene. So I'm going to go up to File, New Scene. It's going to ask me if I want to save. I do. And I've got a brand new blank scene. First thing we're going to do is add a canvas, because this scene, for this purposes, is just going to be a UI. Now, there's no reason your start scene can't be a 3D scene. If you want to put assets into it, you can make a really nice looking start scene. Today's goal is not to really make a nice looking start screen. That just takes a lot of time and is very game dependent. We're going to look at the functionality of this. So we're going to add, we're going to create and we're going to add a UI panel. This panel is just going to contain our buttons. Okay. So we're going to double click on that so we can see it. Click on the negative Z axis to kind of line ourselves up. And this has created a panel. This is the full background here. So I'm going to rename this panel background. You can color this however you want. You might want to put an image in here. If you leave the transparency like this, you'll be able to see the skybox, which could be okay, but not gonna be great with a default Unity skybox. So I'm gonna turn my alpha all the way up, and I'm gonna darken this a little bit so our background is dark. Okay, so there we go, we got a background. Now we want a panel here. I'm just gonna go for the super basic buttons in the middle. And so I'm gonna create yet another panel. So right click UI, and then we're gonna go to panel. Lost my panel. And again, I don't want this one to be full size, so I'm gonna size it down. Something looks like this. Okay. See if it'll, it's not gonna lock in the middle for me. All right, we've got that. And this is going to be our start menu. Now, we're going to have several buttons in here. So let's add those buttons in. We're going to have a UI button. We're going to have a start button. We're going to have a quit button. And I don't know, maybe we'll have a settings button. So I have 3 buttons in there. Now they're all stacked on top of each other, which is fine and great and dandy. And I can resize them manually, or I can use something a little bit more sophisticated. So let's go back up to our panel, and we're going to do the add component. And we're going to add a vertical layout group. And what this is going to do is reorganize all the children into a vertical column. So if I click that, and you'll notice what happened. They went into a vertical column, but they look a little goofy at the moment. Over here in the component, we've got a bunch of different options here. You can open up padding, and so this is the padding on the around this group. What we want to do first here is control the child size. So I'd like these buttons to go full width. So I can click on the width, and my buttons will now stretch out to the full width. I could do height as well, and they're going to fill in. Maybe that's okay. Maybe I'll do a little bit of resizing here, like that. Okay. So let's come back to our padding. Maybe I don't want the buttons to be full size like that. I would like a little bit of padding all the way around. So let's put 5 all the way around. And you can see I now have an edge around there. But my buttons are still really close together. So maybe the spacing here, let's make that 5 as well. And now my buttons look a little bit better. Right? And if I resize this panel, my buttons continue to fill the space, which works really well, especially if you're trying to build for multiple resolutions. All right, so let's name these buttons here a little bit. Let's open up these buttons and give them some values here. So let's start game. It's going to be the main show here. Let's size up our text a little bit. Maybe this will be a settings options. Okay. Make that maybe a little bit smaller. And this will be a quit game. Make that smaller as well. We really want the player to start the game. I'll make those buttons a little bit smaller. And so there we go. We got our buttons built. Now maybe we want to add a little bit more decoration here. So I'm going to just minimize this panel, and maybe I'm going to add in some more text here. Again, this is not intended to be, you know, great looking. Just a demonstration of the idea here. So I got this text here, and this is just going to be the title of my game, best game ever. Okay, really small, can't see it. Let's make that nice and big. That's a little too big. Best game ever. Let's center that like that. Give it a little bit of color. Let's not scare people away because it's the best game ever. Something like that. Okay. And there you go. We've got the basics of a start scene. There's no functionality yet, and we'll do that next. But we've got our buttons built. We've got our title here. And so now we need to start to add in functionality to these buttons. So let's start with the start button, the top button. So I'm going to rename that one just to keep everything clear. Start button. Let's rename all these while we're at it. Settings button and quit button. Okay. So each one of these buttons is going to need to have its own FSM to control what's going on. So much like we did in the last tutorial, let's start with the start button. That's the one we really want to get functioning. So let's go to add component, and we're going to add an FSM. All right. We're going to call this start button. Very creative. And press edit to open up the Playmaker window. So in this state, we just need two things to happen. We need to be listening for a click like we did in the last video, and then we need to load the other scene. So let's create another state, and this state is going to be load game. All right. So we got a load game option here, and this state is going to be once again the listen for click. Okay. So we're going to need to be able to move from listen to click to load to game. So let's create an event, load game. We're going to add that transition and connect the two like that. Now we don't need a transition from this state because we're going to change scenes. So there doesn't need to be any more complex than this. So let's go to our back up here to listen for click and go to our action browser. We're going to search for UGUI, and we're going to once again add this UGUI button on click event. Okay. And we're going to send this event of load game. That'll change our state. Pretty easy. Let's go to the load game state, and we need to load a scene. Okay. And you get a whole bunch of options here. The one we want here is just load scene. So you can do load scene at index, which is by number, kind of my preferred way. It's hard to misspell a number. You can also do by name, but then you got to make sure you type it perfectly, which has problems. So we want load scene at index. Now, here's something we haven't talked about or looked at. This scene at index is something that we need to go and set up here. And the way Unity has this is you have to tell it which scenes are going to be in your game, and we haven't done that yet. So I know the way I'm going to build this. We're going to load scene 1. Okay, so our start scene is going to be scene 0, and our game scene is going to be scene 1. Okay, so we've got that. I'll go back to our game. If I was to push play, well, let's see what happens. If I push play right now, I'm going to get a warning here. Okay, down here in my console. Can't be loaded because it doesn't know what it is. Okay, so what we need to do is go up here to File and Build Settings. Okay. And you can see here at Scenes and Build, it's totally blank and empty. And we need to click this button here, Add Open Scenes. Right. Okay, Okay, so what it's doing here, sorry, that made me pause a little bit. We can't add the open scene because we haven't saved it. So we're gonna start, just call this our start scene. Okay, save that, and we've added, and there you go, there's our 0. That's our index, that's the scene that we're gonna be loading, okay? So we need to do the same thing, our same process with our other scene that we were just working with. Okay. So I'm going to open up that other scene. For me, that was called Project 1. You can see my start scenes right there. So I'm going to open up this other project, or this other scene rather. Go back up to File, Build Settings, and we're going to add that scene as well. And now that scene is number 1. You can rearrange these if you need. If you get them in the wrong order, you can just drag and drop them. You can turn them on and off. If you highlight it and press delete, you can delete them as well in case you get scenes in there that you don't want. So we close that and we'll go back to our start scene. Okay. So now that we've got our scenes into our build settings, let's press play, okay, and click on our start game. And there you go. We've started our game. We're into it. Okay. Even with our annoying sphere collection. Now if I push play again, it brings us back to the scene that we started in, which is nice and handy. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Let's get our quit button to function as well. Okay, so let's open this back up. We're going to go to our quit button. And here in the inspector, we're going to add a component again, the FSM. Okay. And quit button. I'm going to edit that. And same kind of thing, we need 2 states. The first one, we're going to be listen for click. And the second one, it's going to be quit game. All right. So we need an event once again to transition. So let's call that quit game. Getting very creative. Add that in. Connect it. Okay. And then in this listen for click, we once again need this UGUI on click event. Okay. Set the right event so we make that transition. And then in the quit game state, this is where we're just going to quit the application. We're going to quit the program. Okay. So let's search for quit and see what we find. Sure enough, there's a quit application or application quit. We can add that in and you'll notice there's no options. You're just quitting the game. Okay. So if we push play, we can push quit all we want. We can push it all day long and nothing's going to happen. And the reason is that command of application quit only works when you build a standalone version of your game. So can't really demonstrate here quickly or easily how that works, but if you were to build your own game, that would work. To build your own game, you'd go to File, Build Settings, choose your targeted platform. I'm on Windows. And you're going to click the Build button or the Build and Run button. It's going to take a little while, especially if it's your first time building the game, but you can click that. You'll be able to build your game and play it outside of the Unity editor. So there you go. There's a start menu. We're not going to get into the settings because that's really highly game dependent and takes a lot of time. There's not a lot of settings to set at this point. But there you go. We got a basic, very ugly start scene that loads our game and quits our game. So hope that was helpful. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time.